One of the first weapons you get in Fallout New Vegas is probably one of the worst, the Varmint rifle. It's an okay starter weapon, but I hardly ever use it if I have literally any other gun. Even throwing spears are better than it. So that begs the question, can you beat Fallout New Vegas only using the Varmint rifle? I started off by creating a varmint of my own. I chose guns, lockpick, and science as my skills, and skilled and wild wasteland as my traits. I did the usual robbing of Doc Mitchell and put a ceremonial bucket in his toilet. I'd tell you why, but then I'd have to kill you. After selling all my junk to Chet, I went to see Sunny Smiles about getting my hands on my first varmint rifle. Once I had it, I naturally killed Joe Cobb the second I saw him. Trudy wasn't too happy I killed the guy threatening to murder everybody in town. But her disgruntled attitude didn't stop me from becoming the town hero by rallying everyone for a good old-fashioned shootout. During the fight, I found the varmint rifle isn't too bad against enemies with weak armor. After the dust settled, I made my way to Prim, where I killed an NCR trooper for his uniform. When looting the body, I found the service rifle and varmint rifle use the same ammo. You know what that means. I took out every NCR trooper in Prim and stole all their bullets. I did end up biting off a little more than I could chew when I came across Sergeant McGee. Not so much that I choked to death, but just enough that I gagged and flopped around on the floor for a bit until I eventually gave myself the Heimlich. You see, when I got to McGee, I realized just how weak the varmint rifle really was. I got off a sneak headshot, and McGee ate it without so much as flinching. Lieutenant Hayes and a random NCR trooper came running out, and the three of them nearly killed me. Even worse, I spent 57 bullets on 3 dudes. Considering late game enemies are much stronger than McGee, I was a little worried about my chances. To make myself feel better, I cleared out everyone in the Bison Steve Hotel, since they're relatively wimpy enemies, and some of them carry 5.56mm ammo. I came across Deputy Beagle in the middle of my massacre, and he passed off the duty of finding a new sheriff to me. He suggested the NCR, or a murdery sheriff who may or may not be in prison. I chose option C and made Prim Slim the new sheriff. Beagle, however, dared question Slim's judgment. You paid for that. Dearly. With Prim in good metallic hands, my next objective was finding a way to increase my lethality. Legends tell the varmint rifle variant in the game so powerful, the rat gods hid it away so no man can possess its power. Hidden in a deep cave and guarded by unusually sized rodents, the Rat Slayer has a scope and silencer, increasing the chances of critical hits and allowing for long-distance stealth kills. Now that I can actually kill people, I made a beeline for Novak. They seem to be having a ghoul problem that needs handling. Ghouls and rats are basically the same thing, making me the perfect schmuck for the job. But I almost got my rear end handed to me by the first ghouls I came across, so I left to grab a few more bullets first. The NCR at Helios generously donated all their deceased troopers' ammo to me. How they came to be deceased, we may never know. Now, back to the ghouls. I entered the RepCon facility and met up with Haverson. He called me ugly right off the bat, which hurt my feelings and pretty much decided everyone's fate. Jason Bright didn't seem to mind that his entire flock was dead at his feet, and he asked me to help get rid of some nightkin in the basement. Down there I met Harlan. He was sad about a lady ghoul who was no longer with us. I reunited them in the far beyond and got the nightkin to leave. Jason was delighted with my work and asked me to talk to Haverson about fixing up the rockets. I didn't have the heart nor the ability to tell him that I killed Haverson a long time ago, so I just left. I returned to Novak, empty-handed since Jason was still breathing. But I did get a sweet hat from Boone. I pushed on to the strip, making one detour to collect some more ammo at Boulder City. To my shock, Victor didn't chase me down for a chat like normal. Maybe he saw what happened to the last person who talked to me for no reason. I was almost to the strip. But before I entered via the monorail, I made sure to kill every trooper in the area, bringing my ammo count up to 535 bullets. Mr. House was thrilled to see me, but was under the mistaken impression that he was in charge. I corrected him on that. It's yes man or bust. Oh yeah, I also killed Benny after almost seducing him. Speaking of seductions, I had a date with the Kaisar. I put on my prettiest dress and strolled into his tent, but all he wanted was for me to go blow up a bunch of robots or something beneath his base. Naturally, I lied to him about the job and got the profanity out of Dodge. With all that said and done, it was time for me to get social and meet all the factions of the wasteland. I headed off to the boomers first. I was bombarded with missiles and held a bazooka point at their gates. They were clearly a violent people. I felt it was only fitting for them to meet a violent end. With the boomers taken care of, I decided to visit the Gamora and Ultralux. But before I could do anything, they had the audacity to ask me to give up my prized Varmint rifle. They clearly had no idea how much trouble it was to acquire. I mean, it wasn't much trouble. But, I had to go out of my way to find it and kill like 2 rats. That cost me a good 5 minutes to do all that. Time is money, and they weren't getting any of mine. I gave them what they deserved instead. Next on my hit list were the Great Khans. I was tired of getting into big old gunfights, so I just walked up to Papa Khan, blasted his brains out, and ran like my life depended on it. With most of the people on the planet hating my guts, there was just one more faction for me to take off, the Brotherhood of Steel. I waltzed into their bunker and started blasting. But a scoped Varmint rifle is hardly a match for power armor and Gauss rifles. I tried many times to kill Paladin Ramos. I used armor-piercing rounds, I used a stealth boy, I used them both at the same time, but eventually they'd figure out that something was wrong and kill me. After a while, I gave up and did things a much more peaceful way. Now that they kinda liked me, I could go back and tell Yes Man to bully them at a later date. The second Battle of Hoover Dam was approaching, but I needed some more ammo before taking that on. I had quite a few rounds, nearly 700, but I figured I wouldn't be able to snipe away my problems in the middle of a big battle. The Rat Slayer really shines as a stealth weapon, but Legionaries can take a ton of punishment if they know I'm there. I figured I would need all the bullets I could get if I wanted to clear the Legate's camp without getting owned. So I sat in front of the gun runners for a few weeks and bought enough ammo to have over 1,000 bullets. I slipped into my most comfortable suit of combat armor and began slaying fools. Or that's what I thought I needed to do. But the NCR didn't really seem to care that their biggest mass murderer was just strolling through the dam. They only seemed to realize I was their enemy after I installed Yes Man in the computer system. Once he was in, all that was left to do was clear out the Legate's camp. I wasn't too much worried about the Legate himself. I poured all my skills into speech, so I could talk my way out of any fight. I didn't want a repeat of the Spears video. I was more worried about taking on all the Legionaries in the camp, but that really proved to not be much of a problem. There's enough distance between the gate where you first enter and the soldiers in the camp that you can just snipe most of them from a safe distance. And there were also surprisingly few soldiers in the camp too. I was expecting like 10 or 12 guys to start pummeling me, but I guess it was their day off. All that was left for me to do was tell the Legate to scram, become a cannibal, and have Oliver blown to smithereens. And this time, I can tell you truthfully that I beat Fallout New Vegas only using the Varmint rifle. Thanks for watching! Be sure to like the video and consider subscribing if you enjoyed it. If you didn't, feel free to dislike. I'm going to be doing more of these challenge runs, so feel free to leave any suggestions you have in the comments. I'm Captain Morgan, and thanks again for joining me on my ratty adventure.
Strip secure.